All right, it's a little after 10, so we'll go ahead and get started. I know there's some of you that weren't here for the first presentation, so I'll share just a few housekeeping things regarding what we're doing here today and things, and I'll bore the rest of you with what I'm saying. So, we're working with a group called the Registry for College and University Presidents, and it's a group that helps bring interim candidates into key administrative positions. And so the people that you'll be interviewing and hearing today, the 3 candidates, are all here just for an interim position. They will not be a candidate for the full-time position. So I've had people ask me about that. They're wondering, well, will they be here for 6 months and then be a candidate for a full-time position? They will not. So this is they place somewhere in the neighborhood of 100. I think Brian Carlson, who is one of the key leaders, is down here with the candidates, and I think he told me last night they'll place anywhere from 120 administrators to up to 140 this year, and they'll be everything from the president to the provost to other vice president positions and things. So I wanted to share that with you. Some of you I knew weren't at the first meeting. Want to also make sure, if you were not aware, that the CVs are all available on the public drive, so if you haven't had a chance to look at those, I'd encourage you to take a look at those. And let me also mention that the president and the deans are seeking your input, and I would encourage you to communicate with them via email or person to person if you like, your thoughts for the candidates. I think it's the intentions to move fairly quickly on this so that we can get someone in, or at least have them identified by the holidays, and with the opportunity that they will be anyway on January the 1st. So. Anyways, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Carol Copenhaver. Dr. Copenhaver, last permanent position was she was a Senior Vice President of Educational and Student Services at St. Petersburg College in St. Petersburg, Florida. She most recently has been an adjunct faculty member at the University of Maryland. She has a BA from the College of William & Mary with a major in accounting, an MBA from the University of Florida, and she earned her PhD from the University of Florida in Higher Education Administration. So Dr. Copenhaver will speak, and then again we'll open it up to questions. Dr. Copenhaver.
Let me begin by thanking you all for having the coldest day of the year in Florida. My hands were almost frozen last night going on a tour of the campus. The other thing I wanted to say is I usually begin these kind of presentations by apologizing for my southern accent, because people read that as she's just a sweet little southern thing that couldn't possibly get any work done. And that's far from the truth, but I don't have to do that today because you all talk just like I do. Thank you for that. Rick did go through my degrees briefly, but I have a few things I want to say about those. I do have a BA in accounting, but in my senior year, they had us go out for the second semester of our senior year and work for one of the big 8 accounting firms. And I absolutely was miserable. I loved it in college, but I hated doing it in real life. They sent me on an audit, and on an audit, you're not allowed to talk to the people or go to lunch with the people or any of that. So at that point, I knew that I had gotten a degree in the wrong thing, that I didn't want to do that. So then I got married, moved to Florida, had a baby, and in a few years down the road, I could tell the marriage was going south. And then I needed to do something to get myself prepared to take care of myself. So I decided to get an MBA in management. So I went to the University of Florida and did that. But this was the mid-'80s, and there was not a huge demand for women MBAs with a baby at home. So that's when I ended up going into teaching. I got a job teaching a variety of business subjects, some of which I didn't know a whole lot about, but I could learn it faster than the students could. And for example, I had a couple marketing courses, but certainly not enough to teach it, and I had to do that. But at that point, I realized I loved teaching and that higher ed was where I wanted to be. So I was a full-time faculty member for 8 years, and then I was a department chair for 2 years, and then I was assistant vice president of academic affairs for 3 years. And this was at a multi-campus college that had 17,000 students at the time I was there. So I knew I was hooked on higher ed then. So in order to progress, I had to go back and get a PhD. So I went back to the University of Florida and got a PhD in higher ed administration. So then I got my second job, which was at, well, I worked the whole time I was getting my PhD. I didn't quit. And I also continued to teach adjunct for most of that time. So then I went to I went to DeKalb College in Atlanta, which is now Georgia Perimeter College, as what they call the campus dean. They had recently gone into the university system. The university system didn't understand multi-campus institutions, because if you're the University of Georgia, you may have a center here or a center there, but it was just a little center. So they made us use the title campus dean, which was really a provost position, if not a campus president position. And the pay was a dean's salary too. So anyway, I was in charge of all aspects of that campus: academic, student services, business services, plant, facilities. And that was a campus of about 5,000 students, and there were 3 major campuses there. So I've done the provost thing in that position and did it very successfully. But at one point, the president and my boss, the vice president, were all leaving. So I decided I needed to start looking around too. So I applied for the VP of Academic Affairs at Howard Community College in Maryland, in Columbia, Maryland. And this was my first experience at a single campus institution. We had about 4,000 or 5,000 students, and I was the VP for Academic Affairs there. And that's where I first got my feet wet with the whole institutional effectiveness movement. We had a planning system that was based on the INSHM's indicators of excellence. So I was there for 6 years, and then St. Pete called me and asked me to apply for the VP of Academic, Educational and Student Services at that college. And I was honored that they wanted me back. So I applied and I got the job and went back there, stayed for 10 years as Vice President of Academic and Student Services. We had 6 major campuses. They then had 24,000 students and 30,000 non-credit students. And all of that reported through me. And I had a boss who never saw a project in the community he didn't want to do. And of course, he would have the ideas and then dump the project in my lap to implement. So with all the 6 campus provosts reporting to me, the whole responsibility for academic and student services, it was just a huge job. In addition to that, when I got there, they were 2 years away from going through their SACS review and had done nothing. They didn't have a planning system. They didn't have any outcomes assessment. So I had responsibility. We didn't have a SACS liaison like you do here. So I had to do that job too. One of the things that happened right before I went there, the state of Florida started paying in their funding formula for certificate programs, and this college had none. So before I got there, they were calling me, we got to get certificate programs, we got to get certificate programs. Well, I said, look, I'm trying to close out another job. I'll do that as soon as I get there. Leave me alone for a while. So when I did get there, within a year, we had developed 42 industry certification programs, largely in the business and computer science area. So I have a lot of experience with curriculum development, working with faculty to develop curriculum. As I said, I did do the whole SACS thing there, so this job was pretty overwhelming. Another thing I did there was start an administrative leadership program, largely for faculty, some staff. And that's, we wanted, and this was a huge institution, we always had openings for administrators and had good people that had the possibility of doing that. But they really didn't know enough about the college, didn't know anything about finance. So we put them through a year-long administrative leadership program and had people come in and do classes, and college people did part of presentations, taught them about the budget, how it works. And some of them did not have EDDs or PhDs, which most of the positions required. So we brought in a couple schools on site that did those. The University of Florida actually came, and Barry University, and did PhD and EDD programs for these students. And the college paid for a good part of that. So most of those people have ended up, that wanted to, and the only people that wanted to apply to be in the program, have ended up in administrative positions. So it was very, very successful. I also had responsibility for what we call corporate training services, which we did whatever the corporations needed in training, and had some very large contracts with places like Raymond James and E-Systems and big companies, ongoing contracts where we would do management classes, computer certification classes, or whatever they needed. And eventually, after a couple of years that I had it, that program became self-sustaining. All the salaries, all the operating costs were paid for their revenues. So when I reached 62, I was tired and worn out, and I retired. But then I went to Georgia for a year and worked at a job for the Board of Regents. They had a chancellor who wanted to redo the state's general education system. So my job was wanted service learning in it and global studies and stuff like that. So my job was to get that done. And I got to tell you, I didn't do very well, because I had the University of Georgia and Georgia Tech, who didn't want anybody to tell them what their general education should be, along with all the other colleges and community colleges. So we thrashed around for a year, didn't get much done, because those big colleges just weren't going to agree to do anything except what they wanted to do. They sat at the table and were disruptive. So after a year, the Board of Regents canceled the project, and I really retired this time, moved back to Florida, the same city where my son lives, and then I was bored. I realized I retired too early. So I started a consulting company, and I have been doing consulting for colleges around the country, largely in the organizational structure issue and new program development, some continuing ed corporate training stuff. But that only happens 4 or 5 times a year, so I'm still bored. So that's why I signed up with the registry. Let me tell you a little personal stuff about me. I am divorced. I have 1 son and 3 grandsons, ages 6, 9, and 16. And I go to the gym, to group fitness classes 6 days a week, sometimes twice a day. So I'm committed to that. I like to travel. I have friends all over the country from the various jobs I've had, and they've gone other places since I was there. So I travel 4 or 5 times a year to visit them. As a hobby, I love decorating, so I'm an HGTV addict. And I love making my own home look perfect. My son says as soon as I get a house perfect, I sell it and move on. And that's probably true. They asked me to tell you about my leadership style. the best way I can characterize my leadership style is that of a team. I'm a strong team builder. I like to work with teams. And I think to build strong teams, you have to give everybody on the team work to do that fits their skill set, but it's important work. And you have to recognize them for doing that work. And I believe that teams make better decisions. So with that, I will end and let you ask me questions.
Mark Gale, staff. There's major trust issues right now between staff, administration, and faculty. So what would you do to bring all three of those collegiate units back on board, especially when there's strong diverse opinions on what this university should do moving forward?
Well, as I said, I'm a team builder, and building teams means being out and about and talking to people, always being honest. I mean, you can't always say yes to every issue, but you can be honest and explain the reasons that you can't do what the faculty in this case want done. So I would get to know people, they would get to know that they could trust me completely. I would try to be an advocate for faculty when I thought the issue deserved being an advocate for faculty. And I would hope, I'm a relationship builder. You know, I like to get to know people and know about their families and what they're doing, and I like to attend social events with the people that work with me and for me. So I think, you know, it's going to take time because you all are really broken here. But I think I would be able to, as much as anybody, build those trust issues back, just through my personality.
We are a strange model, as I'm sure you're aware, with
Yes.
the junior and senior level, and we're constrained. We can't go down to build, to grow, nor can we go up into master's programs. Would you, the president is interested in doing that. Would you be an advocate to try to help us get into graduate programs?
Absolutely. I'm not sure that we're ever going to get state approval. I think you're about to go for the second time in just a couple of weeks or a few days or something. So, you know, you can't do much about that. And I don't even think you get to make your own presentation. I think somebody from the system, whatever that group is that you go to, does that. But yes, I would be an advocate, and I could certainly help in the curriculum development process and in gathering data that shows the need for the programs you're developing. They said the program you're taking to this board is a logistics program. And logistics is a really hot topic, and there's a huge need for students. So I would make sure we had that data presented in our, if we don't get to do the presentation, in our written report to the board. And I think that's all we can do, is we need to show an industry need for it. And we need to show that even if the college next door is doing it, that there's plenty of demand for students, for two colleges to do it.
Jim Kerner, faculty, College of Business. Do you keep abreast with national agenda, what's going on in higher ed, and would you be willing to provide input to our leadership, Board of Trustees, with regard to perhaps the best path going forward?
Yes, I absolutely do keep abreast of it. I still read all the higher ed journals and the Chronicle and all of that. Through my consulting, you know, I see what's going on in colleges. I know what the hot topics are, and I would be very willing to bring that both to the faculty and to the board.
Thank you.
Did you have a question?
Ms. Hunt, what is your opinion as far as distance learning as compared to traditional?
Well, I believe that we need to quit this argument. The distance learning is here, whether we like it or not, and it's time to embrace it and develop quality rather than arguing about whether it's right or wrong. I don't believe an institution can survive without distance learning now. So that's another potential area of growth for you, even in your junior and senior year thing, if you're stuck with that. So what I would want to focus on is measuring the quality of the online programs and looking at student outcomes and comparing the students in the online programs to the students in the regular programs. And there's data that will tell you that. It's not very easy to get, but I think we could get it. But I did provide the leadership for the online program at St. Petersburg, and that developed into what we called our largest campus. They had 10,000 students in it, taking one or more courses. I've seen some very creative things done with distance learning. We had our vet tech program online, and that was even before we had a learning management system. The faculty just did their, I don't even know how they did it, but they did their own online courses. We managed to find a way to put a few science courses online by using kits that are available for the students to take home. But again, I don't think we can argue about it anymore. It's here, like it or not. It's essential to our growth. Somebody told me yesterday that you all have 52% of your students fully enrolled in online programs. Did you know that? So that ought to tell you something, and I think the number of people enrolled in at least one online course was 80%. So that's what the students want, and the only thing we can do about it is to make sure that the quality and rigor are maintained.
Dr. Copenhaver, is that it? My name is Ronald Merritt. I'm the chair of the Department of Mathematical, Computer, and Natural Sciences here. And I have a question that's related to Dr. Durham's question. While I agree that online education or distance learning education is here to stay for our institution, there are advisory committees that come to us and tell us that it's not working in some areas, particularly in education. They want to see our students in education programs here. They want engagement person to person. And I can appreciate that and I understand that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the Computer Science Advisory Board has the same sentence. Is that right? So would you be sensitive to the areas where there is a need for traditional education because of the area, the discipline's need for that? Student teachers, they can't engage students well if they're learning about classroom management online.
No, I think there's certainly some things, and education is one of them, and at least part of it can't be done online. There are some didactic type courses within the education program that could be done online, but the courses that have student interaction certainly cannot be done online.
I have another question for you, if you don't mind. You mentioned the word broken regarding the faculty. Have you dealt with brokenness and tried to bring healing?
Yes, I have, and I didn't mean to say the faculty was broken.
No, I took it positively. I didn't take it negatively. I took it.
So, yes, I worked for a man in my last St. Petersburg experience that he was president of the college, and he never, I think I told you this, he never saw an idea that he didn't want to do. So resources were going to his ideas, and staff time were going to his ideas. And the faculty did not like it at all. So I had to be the peacemaker with the faculty and try to find reasons when I could to explain to them why he was doing what he was doing. Sometimes there was no reason. What he was doing was ridiculous. So, but I had to try to be the peacemaker and keep the train on the track as much as I could.
I'm curious. You mentioned your Southern accent. Where do you originally hail? Because it doesn't sound like Central Florida.
No, I grew up in Southwest Virginia, which is where the accent came from, though neither my mother or father or brother have it, so I don't know why I have it, and I'll cut out my tongue to get rid of it.
Which part of Bristol or
Just west
Whitfield?
of Bristol, about 30 miles, Marion, Virginia.
So very close to Tennessee.
Oh, yeah, very close to Tennessee.
Okay, yeah. The Tri-Cities area, just north of
Yes,
that.
absolutely.
I'm a staff member from Institutional Research and Assessment. And I have one particular question. As a new leader, you're coming into an organization that has some problems, but let's pretend that there are no problems. What are the first 3 things you would do as a newcomer into a new organization?
I would first get out and about and meet people and talk to people. I would give people an opportunity if they wanted to make an appointment to come see me in addition to that. Number 2, I would need to learn all your policies and procedures. And number 3, I would work with you to set an agenda for what we needed to focus on for the next year.
Thank you.
I'm not sure whether that's graduate program development or assessment or whatever we needed to do, but you all would need to let me know that. Yes.
My name is Sam Corey. I'm in the College of Business. I was the one that developed the logistics program with the help of the others in the college. And we got a lot of the data that you were talking about. And we spent a considerable amount of time. And Sylvia, that just asked you the question there, she helped us gather this valuable information. If we're not successful in getting the logistics program, we talked about 2 other possible master's programs. How do you feel about that? Do you think that's something that we should continue to pursue, or?
I'm not sure how onerous the task it is to prepare all that, but if it can be done, I would say keep pursuing it. What are your other ideas?
We're looking at contract and acquisition and also HR.
I would just be sure that, is it North Alabama that's giving you the trouble on the logistics? I would just be sure that they aren't doing the same program. Try to come up with something that
Yes,
they're
that's exactly what we did. The biggest problem we have now with logistics is that others have similar, well, they didn't have actual logistics program until we actually put ours forward, and then they, UAH put theirs forward after they found out we were doing that. So the biggest battle is they're afraid we're going to take their students away.
That's really dirty play.
Yeah. Politics is really bad.
Yeah. I don't know, I would just try to think of something unique like the things you just mentioned that maybe they're not doing, and try to keep it quiet as much as you can to get it submitted. Is that it? Yes.
Kevin Dupre, English. What are your views on the role of humanities, social sciences, the liberal arts in a university education?
Well, as I told you, I spent a very unsuccessful year in Georgia helping them revise their general education program. But I did learn a lot about what the outcomes of general education should be. So more than I ever was in all my years in education, I believe that a student to be a full-rounded person and live a good life needs those courses. And also, every time I do a business and industry focus group about a particular technical curriculum, what we hear is, give them more soft skills. We can teach them the technical skills, which I don't think they really mean, but that's what they say consistently. But you've got to, they need more people skills, and they get that from the humanities. So I'm very supportive of those kind of courses. As I said, I didn't used to be. I thought they were just a pain that were keeping me from doing what I needed to do as a curriculum. I have a different view of that, and I believe they do help people live a good life and be a happy person. Is that it?
Any last questions?
Thank you very much.
If you want to communicate with your deans or your department heads, president regarding candidates, please do that by Monday. We will be back here at 11 o'clock. So I encourage you to come back and sit down and meet with me. Thank you.